The film begins with Luis, a wealthy businessman who lives in a mansion in Cuba, preparing to welcome his bride Julia. At that time, his friend Alan and the mansion's manager Sarah ask him why he's getting married this way. He tells them that he wants a woman with whom he can start a new life and build a family, far from any personal gain. That's why he chose Julia, who doesn't know that he is rich and still agreed to marry him after he posted an ad in the newspaper looking for a wife. Alan then asks him why he chose her even though she's American and not beautiful. Luis responds that he doesn't care about her nationality or appearance. What matters to him is that she's a kind woman who wants to build a life and family with him, even if he were poor. Luis goes to wait for her at the port, and when she sees him, she calls out to him. He tells her that she's not the girl in the photo. She replies that she sent him her sister's photo to see if he would still want to marry her even if she wasn't beautiful, and she asks for his forgiveness for lying. He then reveals that he lied too. He is actually wealthy and owns a lot of money, but didn't mention it in the ad because he wanted to know if a woman would accept him for who he is, not for his wealth. Afterward, Luis tells her their wedding will be that night at 9 p.m. The wedding takes place, and a large celebration is held, attended by many people. After the party, Luis tells her that he will let her sleep alone until she gets used to him and falls in love with him. He points to her room, and she thanks him, goes in, and closes the door behind her. The next morning, she comes into his room to wake him up and tells him she made breakfast. After he eats, she gets closer to him, and over time, Luis falls in love with her. He takes her to show her his coffee plantation, and in the evening, they go to see a theater show. During the show, Julia leaves and goes backstage to talk to one of the actors. Luis follows her, and when he sees her talking to the man, he calls her and asks who that is. She stammers but he doesn't press further. The next day, Julia receives a letter from her sister. Luis reads it and learns that her sister is worried because she hasn't heard from Julia. He hands the letter to Julia and asks her to write back to reassure her, but she refuses, saying her sister was always harsh to her and she doesn't want to communicate with her. Luis insists that she write back. The next morning, she shows him the letter and says she'll give it to Sarah to send. Luis says he'll take it himself and send it from work. Then he asks what her plans are for the day, and she replies that she'll visit the dressmaker to have dresses made. The next day, he takes her to his lawyer, who asks her to sign a power of attorney so she can withdraw money from his account anytime. She signs it. Later that day, Alan asks Luis if he really trusts Julia enough to give her access to all his money, considering she comes from a lower social class. Luis replies that he loves her and wants to make her happy, and that now she's on the same level as him because they are one. After leaving Alan's office, Luis meets Walter Downs, who introduces himself as a private investigator hired by Emily Russell, Julia's sister from Wilmington, USA, to find out if Julia really got married. Luis replies that Julia is fine and that they've been married for some time. Walter says he needs to confirm this in person and will visit their home on Sunday at 11 a.m. Luis agrees. When Luis returns home, he tells Julia what happened. He tries to open the box she brought from America, but she refuses, saying she lost the key. At that moment, the timeline shifts, and we see Julia in a prison cell with a priest beside her. She's telling him her story. When she asks if the execution will hurt, he asks if she's afraid. She replies that Julia is the one who's afraid, not Bonnie. When he asks who Bonnie is, the story goes back in time. Emily Russell visits Luis at his office, worried about her sister. Luis tells her that Julia sent her a letter, but Emily shows him the letter and says it's not her sister's handwriting. Luis becomes furious, rides his horse back home, and finds that Julia is gone. Sarah tells him she went to the post office and never returned. Luis searches Julia's closet and discovers she took all her clothes. He also finds a broken knife among her belongings. He pulls out his gun and shoots the lock off her box. Inside, he finds real photos of Julia, signed with her name. He rushes to his lawyer and learns that Julia emptied his bank account using the power of attorney. Luis breaks down. When Sarah tries to comfort him, he tells her he loved Julia and wants to find her to kill her for deceiving him. 2 days later, Luis is at a bar where he meets Walter again. Walter asks him what he's done. Luis says the police couldn't do anything because it was his legal wife who took the money with his own signature. He offers Walter a large sum to help him find her. Walter asks, "So you still have money?" Luis says yes, and he's willing to give it all to anyone who tells him where she is. Walter replies he'll think about it, as he's currently busy looking for the real Julia. Luis says that if they find the real Julia, they'll find the impostor too. Walter asks, what will you do with her? Luis replies, I want to kill her. The next day, they go to the ship Julia arrived on in America and show the crew her photo. The captain confirms Julia was on board and was part of an American acting troupe going to Cuba. When they show the crew a photo of the real Julia wearing the same dress, the crew says that another girl was wearing that exact outfit, but she isn't the one in the photo. They describe the impostor's appearance. Walter concludes that the impostor learned about the real Julia's plans and destination, killed her, and assumed her identity. He adds that the impostor likely had a partner who helped her, then she ran away from him, and he might be looking for her too. He also explains that American theater troupes often go to Havana, so they should search there. They travel to Havana and stay at a luxury hotel. In Louis' room, Walter sees him unpack and notices a gun among his clothes. Walter says he's going to his room and asks if Luis will have dinner at the restaurant. Luis says no, but later goes to the restaurant anyway. There, he hears Julia's voice speaking with a man. When he sees her, he's sure it's her. He asks the waiter who the man is. The waiter replies he's Colonel Roth, and the woman is his fiancée. Roth walks Julia to her room. When he asks to stay the night, she refuses and shuts the door. Julia begins practicing signing the name Billy. Suddenly, she's shocked to see Luis in her room. He asks who Billy is. She says he's just a friend. He says, you have many friends, did you marry them too, like you married me? She says no, then asks what he plans to do. He shows her the gun and says he's going to kill her. She laughs, points the gun at herself, and says, kill me. He says, you want me to kill you like you killed the real Julia? She denies it, saying a man told her Julia got seasick and fell into the sea, and that she should pretend to be Julia and finish what Julia started. Luis hits her and demands to know who that man is. She says it's the actor he saw her with backstage and that he was her lover. She adds that she acted perfectly with Luis because she's a trained actress. The night she met her lover at the theater, she told him she didn't want to go on with the plan because she had started to love her husband. Luis tries to strangle her and asks, still lying. She says she could have paid Billy to leave them alone, but Luis insisted she write to Julia's sister, leaving her no option but to run. He hits her again, and she tells him it's not the first time she's done this. She took his money and gave it to Billy before running away. Luis becomes enraged and says he can't live without her, that his love for her consumes him and he can't get rid of it. She apologizes for what she did, and he says she's still his wife. The next day, Luis goes down alone to the restaurant for breakfast, where he meets Walter, who tells him he went to his room but didn't find him. Walter shows him a news article revealing that the real name of the fake Julia is Bonnie, and that the police are searching for her after discovering the body of the real Julia in the sea, with a broken knife blade embedded in her body. Luis becomes furious and insists that his wife is innocent. We then see Luis with Bonnie, who tells him that the knife used to kill Julia was indeed hers, but she didn't kill her. Luis says he believes her. They travel together to a small town called Cardenas and rent an apartment there. After a short while, Luis is surprised to see Walter standing in front of him, and he appears visibly anxious. Walter asks, "What brought you here?" and explains that the police received a tip that a woman matching Bonnie's description was seen in this area, so he got there before the police and began his own search. At that moment, Bonnie spots Walter with Luis. At the same time, Walter asks Luis if he's seen Bonnie. Luis denies it and suggests they go together to a bar. There, Walter tells him that Emily identified her sister's body. Luis replies that he needs to use the restroom and rushes back to the apartment, calling out for Bonnie. Walter follows him and tells Luis that he had always suspected him. A fight breaks out between them, and Luis pulls out a gun and shoots Walter. At that moment, Bonnie enters, and Luis fires a second shot at Walter, who collapses. Luis then breaks down and tells her that this was the investigator who came to arrest her. She asks, "Did he come alone?" He replies, "Yes." She says, "What's done is done, it was his fate," and tells Luis they now need to think about how to get rid of the body. She asks him to go and buy 2 train tickets to anywhere, while she disposes of the body. Luis heads to the train station. Meanwhile, Bonnie returns to the room, removes the fake mustache from Walter's face, and says, "Finally, Billy, you've paid for everything you did to me." Suddenly, Billy opens his eyes. At this point, we learn that Billy and Bonnie grew up together in an orphanage and ran away. Since then, they have been stealing and scamming people. We go back to Billy, who tells her he's not stupid. When he was at the hotel with Luis, he swapped the real bullets in the gun for fake ones, so that if Luis found her first, he wouldn't be able to kill her, because Billy wanted to kill her himself for daring to run away. But now, he says he won't kill her yet, because he found out that Luis still has money and still loves her. That means Luis would be willing to sell his shares in the company if she asked him. Billy tells her she must ask Luis for the money, and once she gets it, Billy will kill him. When she refuses, he tells her that Luis isn't the first man and won't be the last, and that she belongs to him alone and must do what he says. She gives in. When Luis returns that night, he finds Bonnie having dinner. He asks, "What did you do?" She replies that she got rid of the body. The next day, they travel and start living in a poor neighborhood. Luis tells her he needs to return to Cuba to get more money because they've run out. She tells him there's no need to go back, and she teaches him how to gamble. She trains him to read other players' hands. Later, Luis starts gambling with a group of players, and Bonnie signals their cards to him, helping him win. However, one of the gamblers notices what they're doing. The group beats Luis violently and then rapes Bonnie. After this horrific incident, Bonnie realizes that Luis doesn't belong in her world and can never be like her. She decides to go ahead with Billy's plan. Luis returns to Cuba, sells his shares, and tells his friend that he killed a man and can't stay. His friend helps him, and Luis boards a train back to Bonnie. But he starts to notice that she's changed. One day, he follows her and discovers she is meeting with Billy, realizing they both deceived him. When Bonnie returns home, she prepares tea and poisons it. Luis tells her he has never loved any woman the way he loves her and that he gave up everything for her. He says he saw her with Billy and asks where he is. She tells him Billy is waiting for her to turn off the light once Luis is dead, so he can come dispose of the body. Luis says that if his death will make her happy, he's willing to die for her, and drinks the tea. She screams, "Don't drink it." Just then, the candle falls on the table and the lights go out. Billy rushes upstairs to the apartment, but Bonnie gets there first and takes Luis to the train station, asking people for help to get him to a hospital. Billy sees this and threatens her with a knife. Luis shoots him, this time with real bullets, and Billy collapses. The poison begins to take effect on Luis, so Bonnie goes to the station master. When he refuses to help, she fires another bullet at Billy, killing him, and tells the station master that she has killed a man and he must call an ambulance and the police. In the final scenes, we return to the moment when Bonnie finishes telling her story to the priest, who is deeply moved and asks her to pray with him. The next day is Bonnie's scheduled execution, but when the guards enter her cell to take her, they discover that the priest is the one wearing her clothes. Bonnie has escaped. In the very last scene, we see Luis in Morocco, gambling. Bonnie appears and joins him. We understand that the two of them have decided to continue their lives together. If you enjoyed the movie, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you don't miss our latest uploads.